You're listening to Seminary Dropout, and I'm your host, Shane Blackshear. Somewhere in between seminary and youth camp, it's Seminary Dropout. Let's go. Hey everybody, I'm really excited to announce today our newest sponsor for the show. Our newest sponsor is an independent publisher called Greatest Stories Ever Told. I think that an independent publisher is such a perfect sponsor for Seminary Dropout, a perfect partner to have. It's hard for major publishers to make a buck these days, and especially independent publishers. So I'm so happy to be able to support them and for them to be able to in turn support us. I think it's going to be a really great relationship. Again, the publisher is called Greatest Stories Ever Told. And I'll give you their website and everything. And of course, all of this will be on the show notes. I want to talk real quick about one of their books. It's called Decoding Nicaea. Constantine Changed Christianity and Christianity Changed the World. It's a really fascinating book that I'm really excited to dive into myself even more. Most of you know the Council of Nicaea. They kind of came together in about 325 and decided on some core Christian beliefs. And there's a lot of myths out there about it. One of the things that the book does is it shows how the council didn't fabricate Christian claims about Jesus, meaning the things that they said about Jesus from this council were reflective of the actual beliefs that Christians had then. They didn't just make it up. And they also didn't craft an official canon of the New Testament, which is a big rumor. And so this book takes a hard look at some of the myths surrounding it. It takes a look at the history. It is exhaustive. The research is there, a lot of primary sources, but it's also really accessible for those who haven't really delved into more academic resources. It's a great place to start. I think that it would be great to read front to back, but also I think it's just a great reference because it is so exhaustive. So Decoding Nicaea, I'm reading it myself, and Greatest Stories Ever Told. And you can find them online at greateststoriesevertold.com, but it's actually greatest-stories-ever-told.com. And again, I'll have links to that in the show notes. And if you're listening on the app, you can just click my logo there and you'll see a link to Greatest Stories Ever Told and be able to buy the book. So thank you, Greatest Stories Ever Told, for sponsoring Seminary Dropout. I think it's going to be a great sponsorship. Now, I have to tell you about what you're about to hear because it's going to be very different than most of the interviews that I've done. So if you're listening to this for the first time, please, after you're done, go back and listen to a few others. Odds are I've interviewed someone else that you really love. Go check those out. This interview, one was done face-to-face most of the time. It's over Skype, and I've got my entire setup here. This interview with Rob Bell, you all know who Rob Bell was, former pastor of Mars Hill, author, speaker, surfer, guy who sits down with Oprah. I got to sit down with him and talk with him right before he went on to do his Everything is Spiritual talk here in Austin. He's on tour right now. He's probably coming to a city near you, so go check that out. I'll have links to that in the show notes as well. So I just brought my handy-dandy digital recorder, sat it down, recorded. So, honestly, the audio is not as great as it usually is, but it was the only way for it to be done. And I think it came out great. I didn't edit out for content like I usually do. So, and there's a reason for that because the events that go on during this interview kind of tell a story. And instead of cutting all that out, I thought, nope, I just want everybody to experience this as I experienced it. And so at some point, somebody knocks on the door, brings Rob some posters to sign before the event. At some point, music just starts blaring in the background because it's time for him to get ready to go on. I just left that in. And then a turn of events happens, and where I'm invited to talk to Rob Bell later on. And so I'll just let you hear that. And then after that point, when we come back, I'm joined by some friends of mine who were there, Joe and Charlotte, very good friends of mine. And they actually join in and kind of ask questions too at some point. So you'll hear that as well. So I just wanted to prep you all. Thank you for listening. This is an awesome interview. And, Rob, everything I've heard about him, about his charisma, just how energetic he is, absolutely true. You'll hear all of it. Okay, here it is.
Well, Rob, thanks for being with me.
No problem. My pleasure.
You're here in Austin on tour. Nice enough to do this interview with me. For people who don't know, what's the message of Everything Spiritual?
It's about the expanding universe. We're learning all these fascinating new things about the omnicentricity of the universe, that all the galaxies are moving away from all the other galaxies. And so I'm talking about what we're learning about the nature of our universe, and then what we know about how our hearts work. And that your moments of greatest joy and peace and connection are moments when you move beyond yourself to connect, to expand, to include, to embrace. So what we all know about our peace and joy and how our hearts work sounds a lot like what we're learning about how the universe is. And so I'm exploring all those connections. And then, what does this mean for how we live every day? Can you line yourself up with the fundamental trajectory of the universe? And does that change the way you see everything? That's what I'm working through. It's so much fun to do every day.
It sounds like
Are you coming tonight, by the way?
Yeah, well, if you let me hang out.
Are you on the guest list? What's your
No.
guest list?
Okay, sweet.
Done.
Awesome.
Is there anybody else you need to come to?
Not that I can think of. Some of my friends are going to be here.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, you're on guest
They
list.
already bought tickets. So
Okay.
So it sounds like a lot of what you talk about and what we talk about with my podcast. Similar?
I sort of touch on those expanding universe, there is no up or down, but this is like sort of starting there and then going, an hour and 45 minutes farther.
Let's talk about what's the status of the Rob Bell Show.
I did a special on the OWN network.
Right. Is that going to keep going, or are we going to have future?
I got some other stuff in the works.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a television network is awesome because it's huge and there's endless resources. Well, not endless, but there's massive resources. You also, then it airs on TV at a set time. And there are commercials.
Yeah.
If you don't have cable, you don't have that network, or you don't happen to be in front of a television at that time, or know where to find it. So it's weird now. You
Everything's
can also
on demand.
just make something, and you could 10 minutes later it could be on everybody's phone on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or an email.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to work with a network that reaches millions of people and be like, oh wait, the giant big broadcast medium also, it's fun and you can make some great stuff. It also has serious limitations.
Yeah.
When I started a podcast a couple months ago in January with a $60 mic I borrowed from one of my sons,
Yeah.
plugged it into my computer. I don't know anything about like engineering or sound mixing, and literally opened up a QuickTime file.
Sure.
And just talked. Sent it to my friend Stratton, who put it on iTunes.
Yeah.
And you have to ask, did I talk to more people doing that?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's been really interesting. People talk about old media and new media. I must be like the poster child for sitting like right between the two. It's very interesting.
Yeah, sure.
So I got a couple things in the works that I think would be pretty exciting, but I was really, so it was a great experience. And the own people are extraordinary human beings. They're really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was something I wanted to ask you about, is the podcast. Why does...
Yeah. Oh, what? I think there's somebody knocking and shaking the door. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. And the podcast continues.
This is what editing's for.
34.
You're going to sit here and sign posters? Well, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not like, hi, everybody, listening to the podcast. A little bit of work.
Where did you just say 34? I don't know.
Yeah.
So your podcast, why does Why does Rob Bell need a podcast? When you've got your show on OWN, I mean, it's special, but you've got books out there. You know, some people say you're going backwards. Like guys like me, we got to start with the podcast because there's no barrier to entry there, right? What do you want to accomplish with that?
Why guys like you as opposed to what?
Well, because I don't have a platform. That was the way I started my platform. You started yours with being a pastor of the church and writing books. I mean, you had to pay your dues, no doubt. I'm just saying, that was where I started.
Yeah. Why would I do that?
Yeah. Well, what do you want? What is it that you feel like, you know, the mediums of a TV show or writing books?
Which book comes out every 18 months.
Sure.
So just every 18 months I'll show up for 200 pages. I love the work.
Yeah.
I love the work. I love the crafting of something. I love the arc. I love the trajectory. I love trying to figure out the best way to explain this. I love what's the best way to tell that story, the craft of it.
Yeah.
I love the work. I love having something brewing in me and then start storyboarding it and start finding the nuances of it, and then that thing that happened with my neighbor 3 months ago starts to pop, starts to quiver, starts to tremble, starts to have like, oh, that was what that was.
Yeah.
I got a letter from a guy recently telling me what it was like to all of a sudden be overwhelmed with the sense that he didn't know where his son was in the house, and his son was in the backyard, and he flies out the back door for some reason knowing he's supposed to sprint out the backyard. His son is just taking a gun and he's like, oh my. And he sends me this email describing what that's like to turn the corner in your own backyard and there's your son laying in the grass. I'm still like processing that email.
Sure.
And just all the things around us, things with your kids. One of my best friends, his mom died this week, so I was just on the bus last night on the phone with him, just talking about. And she didn't want a ceremony; she wanted to be cremated. So there's nothing for him to go back for. Like she's gone, and there was no. We were talking about how the absence of a ceremony is really. So there's all this life exploding around us all the time, and I love the language. You can put language to it. If you have some new insight that helps you deal with that thing. That's why I podcast, because I'm trying to work it out like everybody else.
Part of me wonders. I'm also a former pastor.
Oh.
If that like gives you the outlet that you had from preaching on a weekly basis when you were at Marcel.
I feel like more of a pastor than ever. And pastoring is being with people in spiritual direction and joining them in their pain. For a lot of people, when they say pastor, what they mean is mid-level executive management.
Right.
So I am...
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, it's nice that you got control of that.
Playlist, walk-in music. Starts with a classic deep midnight oil cut.
Nice.
I always on tour make a playlist.
Yeah.
Of stuff I want to hear before I do my thing.
Yeah.
So that, and then we're now like 4 nights in, I begin to know the order, so I know how soon to
be on. You got like a Pavlovian response to what song is up.
There are songs that I can hear now from 3 tours ago.
Yeah.
I hear that song and
bring
instantly
you right back to it.
Nerves, like, oh, game time, here we go.
Eye of the tiger.
So so what happens is that a lot of people, when they talk about pastoring, they're also talking about institution building.
Right, sure.
And I don't have any of that, which is interesting because then there's just you and me talking about what we're talking about. Nothing else in the room. Right. And so interesting enough, I strangely feel like more of a pastor in the sense of spiritual teacher than ever.
I've had, more recently, had the exact same realization. Obviously, my platform is a lot smaller, and I want to be careful in saying that because I really believe in the church, and so I don't want to ever send that message that, like, pastors need to quit their job and start a podcast. But,
totally agree.
But I feel like what I do has helped so many more people. And I think that's more because it's a better fit for who I am than being to go as a pastor.
Yeah.
You know. When you left Mars Hill, did you what precipitated that? Did you feel like a release, a time to move on? Did you have other irons in the fire at the time?
A couple of things. Some of our closest friends were elders, leaders in the church, and they had been saying, like, hey, what do you want to do next? We totally love you. We believe in you. What's the next thing you want to do? And just genuine, like, how can we help you do whatever it is you want to do next? And Chris and I had this overwhelming sense that there is an answer that keeps the institution exactly as it is. There's the answer that you give that's like, however I can serve, however I can fit in, however I can give.
It's a safe answer.
We had this overwhelming sense that we were supposed to really think about it. What is the next thing? And I have this friend, Carlton Hughes, who made a show called Lost. And he and I had been working on some stuff, and I'd been to some engagements where I was interacting with a whole new world of people, and like a vision was birthed, like, I need to take what I do and do it in new spaces where people who would never darken the door of a church would go. And that means Los Angeles. And
you know that automatically?
Yeah. And that most people, if a sitcom is funny for 5 seasons, they make 7.
Right.
Most people stay too long.
Yeah.
And so what would be a graduation becomes a divorce. And so all of this stuff was sort of churning, and there was a baptism service at Mars Hill, and I'm on the stage, and people are being baptized, and another pastor gave the sermon that morning, and it was really good. And I sat there thinking, wow, that was really a fresh way to think about it. But I kept thinking, it's really good, but why am I having such an overwhelming reaction to? And then people started coming up into the water or being lowered into the water. And I was like I didn't have a role in the service, so I was just giving them towels and giving them hugs. Some of them wanted a picture. And I started weeping. And I can't stop. And I know there are people to that day who got baptized today. It was like, man, Rob was really into my baptism. You know what I mean?
Mine was specifically meaningful to him.
In that moment, since we had started the church, when you start a church, it's on your shoulders, it's your baby. You carry it deep in your soul. And I had this moment. It was like, hey, there's a church here. There's a church here. And you're done.
Yeah.
And something was taken off my shoulders. I'm telling you, it was absolutely, it was a moment it was an unbelievable, indescribable moment. Like, you need to go take the next leap, the next risk, and it's time, and they're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine. And it was, I wasn't angry, there wasn't any controversy. It was fascinating to me also the number of people who were like, well, what's the real story?
Yeah,
it's interesting to me how many people, it's interesting how many church people are deeply cynical people. Yeah. And they don't understand how pervasive their cynicism is. They're assuming there's a scandal or a dark thing, or what's the real reason is we all want to be as alive as possible. Isn't that what Jesus said he came to bring us? And there are moments when you realize this is where the life is, and the risk and the leap and the oh my word, what are we doing here? Is part of, that's how it works. And so the people in the church got an email on a Thursday in September saying, Rob and Kristen are going to be leaving us for new work in Los Angeles. Rob will be telling us more on Sunday. That's all they got. Sunday, and we were talking about the service Sunday, we were like, just walk up there and start talking. Don't even try to sing a song. You know what I mean? So I'm telling you, I walked up onto the stage at the top of the hour, and every person in the place goes to their feet for a 5-minute standing ovation. Wow. It was literally all we know is you're leaving us. and here's how
You
we're
wonder how
going to
take
respond.
that?
You know what I mean? Here's
Yeah,
how
yeah.
we're going to respond. And it was like, it was just an incredible.
It feels really ordained.
So it was like, yeah, it's sad. You're moving on. It's the end of an era. Grieve it. You got to grieve
Yeah.
good things, and then go do the thing you got to do. Yeah, it was an extraordinary season. I was always fascinated with people who were like, yeah, but what's this? You know, he got booted. It's like, how are you literally making up? You know what I mean?
Well, we're so conditioned for that story, right? Like
Right.
there was an affair. There was
Right.
somebody's mad at you. You're mad at somebody else.
Right.
We're so conditioned to that being the real thing because nobody leaves a good thing, right? You know. What's your daily routine look like? How do you make time for writing, podcasting, doing your creative endeavors, things like that, and then also make time for self-care? How do you make time to be a good dad, a good husband?
Make my kids breakfast in the morning.
Yeah.
Serious. Like French
That's your
toast.
grounding
French
activity
toast.
every
Bacon.
morning. Yeah.
Fresh smoothies. Like we do it right. Take the kids to school. Walk
Yeah.
the dog. And then there's a window in the morning where the juice flows. So whether it's the next tour, book, podcast outline, there's a window and I create, and then it closes. So I am at my desk, and unless I just finished something that had a deadline, I'm like, otherwise I'm there every morning. There's a window and stuff happens.
Yeah.
And I just do it until, and then by lunchtime, the window usually closes. And usually I go surfing. We're going to be living a bit farther from the ocean this fall, so but usually I go surfing, or I go for a run, or then sometimes I meet up with somebody. Oftentimes a lot of spiritual leaders, I always say they come at night, who their thing isn't working, and they need somebody to sort. You wouldn't believe the number of people who are running really big things, and it isn't working.
Really?
And they'll say, I read your stuff. If I tell people that I do, I would get fired. But, oh yes.
Wow.
That whole thing
So
doesn't
they
work.
come to you at night because it's dark, is what you're saying.
I always say it's like a little metaphor, a little Nicodemus, they come. So I do some spiritual direction for people. I meet with people about upcoming whatever there's, and then there's your email, that just stuff. And then I'm by like late afternoon, 5, whatever. I don't do emails after that. I don't do any work. I'm with the kids. There's a window of time when I work, and then it's shut off. Friday afternoons, I turn my computer off around 4, and then I don't do any work the rest of Friday or Saturday. I don't create anything. I don't. There's one day a week that I don't do any creative work, and I usually record the podcast on Sunday mornings. And then so I don't. It's a very serious rhythm to everything.
Yeah.
And then obviously you can break that rhythm anytime you need to. Sometimes you do need to. But I stick to those rhythms really closely, because otherwise you're just one more person running around with no rhythm or pattern, and no wonder you burn out and frustrated out of yourself. Yeah. And I'm always, there's always something interesting to read, and I'm always interested in things I know nothing about, whether it's architecture or freediving or biology or something. I'll always read something I know nothing about or whatever. And that's what I do. Fantastic.
You read anything good right now?
Oh, goodness. Ilia Delio. You ever read Ilia Delio? She's a French scientist and theologian.
Okay.
The Unbearable Wholeness of Being.
Oh, yeah.
Is one of hers.
Okay.
Unbelievable. I'm reading a book about elegance and design. It's pretty interesting. I'm reading a book about, I'm always reading a book or two about surfing. Elizabeth Gilbert has a novel called The Signature of All Things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She was just on your podcast, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Love her. Her novel, Signature of All Things, will blow your mind. My wife and I always pass. Chris and I are always passing books back and forth.
Yeah.
Each morning I read from Rumi's Big Red Book,
Okay.
a Sufi mystic from the 12th century, and his poetry does something to me. So lately I've been reading a couple of pages every day from his Big Red Book, which is, I've been reading for a while. It takes forever to read through it, and it's amazing. and it's introducing me to these interesting forms of poetry I hadn't been familiar with, and I get the lines. Some of the lines are just amazing. So, like he has these lines like, "Your life has been a mad gamble. Make it more so. You have rolled the dice 1,000 times. Roll it 1,000 more." You know what I mean?
It's good with the words.
It's really powerful stuff. Another wave will smash us, and then the meeting that we have wanted will occur.
Pretty good.
Everyone knows that the door to the sanctuary is inside you.
Oh, come on! Do you feel like your beliefs have evolved greatly in the last 10 years, or were you slowly revealing those beliefs to everyone? Does that question even make sense?
Oh, yeah, I'm assuming that I always took seriously disciples, students.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never surprised that I would be growing and seeing things in new ways. So I think I'm probably just talking about, there's the marinade. If you read a book and the next week you spout off about it, that's not smart. So things marinate for a while, and some things stick and some things don't. Some things become a part of your life, some things don't. Some things become so how you now see it, you can't even remember that you used to see it some different way.
Yeah.
And some things you're like, I don't know about that. So yeah, I probably what I'm saying was new to me at some point back there, and it became normal and natural, and then it became like something that was so part of my life I could actually witness to it in my life.
Yeah.
You have to have climbed Mount Everest to talk about climbing Mount Everest. And I always, when I started out, I observed that some people were repeating Bible verses. That was easy.
Mm-hmm.
That it was very easy to preach what everybody had taught you. So you name the issue, and the person's like, yes, Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 2, and there's a reference to it in Habakkuk. And we've heard it, okay, those are 3 verses about that topic. Got it.
Yeah.
They could do that. But that's not witnessing to your own flesh and blood experience. So we can give you the 4 verses on forgiveness. That's different than somebody who's actually forgiven somebody who betrayed them. And when they stand up there and tell you they've actually climbed Mount Everest.
Yeah.
And you feel it. There's an authority there. There's a flesh and blood authority. Something happened to me early where I saw people, and I realized the only way to do this with integrity is to only talk about things that you've experienced. So somewhere in there, I just decided I will witness. My job is to witness to my own journey. And if I do that with joy and integrity, there's always a chance that other people might resonate with it. That's all I got. I'm not the smartest, not a scholar, not the brightest, I'm not the cleverest, I'm not the fastest. There's always somebody who can do it better. Somewhere along the way, I just decided that I can talk about what I've seen. So I'm just going to do that. That's where the joy is. That's what I just started doing. Yeah.
There's this pattern I've seen with a lot of people that I've interviewed who they had some kind of they had some kind of faith, and that faith kind of, grows stale. Like, they weren't about to become atheists or anything, but it just wasn't adding up anymore. And then the story goes, and then I read The Divine Conspiracy.
Oh, yeah.
And I think maybe when I was talking to Gary Black Jr., you know him?
Sure.
So, we were kind of rehashing, because he obviously helped Nelson Moore write Divine Conspiracy Continued. So we're talking about the original, and I was just, hey, tell people, why that's such a big deal, And I think he dropped your name as someone who, that was a big deal to you, that book. What was that, in your life, what's that meant to you?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Well, the first job I ever got at church, that church was, how many people did we get saved tonight? Mm-hmm. And what I observed is that people would have these really emotional experiences in a moment. And 3 weeks later, we'd be like, whatever happened to Dale? Is Dale still coming? It was almost like try to keep them coming.
Yeah.
And I sort of intuitively was like, this doesn't feel right. It seems like let's invite people into a way of life. And if we do that, and it's really compelling, and we're all on it together, then they'll probably have experiences. They'll probably have transcendent moments. There'll probably be moments when they cross a line, or they cross a threshold into some new understanding or awareness or trust or love or something. And then I read Divine Conspiracy, and it's like, it's a classic thing, the gift of a writer who puts language to your experience. Oh my word. Yes. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. We're students, and we're learning. And we're learning a way of being in the world. And when I was ordained, there was a day of questioning. What if we found 3 Corinthians? What is the difference between ontological standing and ministerial function? There was not one question about whether I'm a good husband. There's not one question about, tell us about somebody that you've forgiven. There was no questions about my life. And I was always struck with, I think at the time I probably wasn't, something was off about the experience.
Yeah.
And now I realize, that when you divorce orthodoxy from orthopraxy, when this becomes about arranging your mental furniture, you have lost the plot. And so I think the Divine Conspiracy was somebody putting in language different things that I hadn't even at the time realized how profound they were until he put all that in language. What was it, chapter 3, the God-bathed universe, just you. Yeah.
When you and Kristen wrote The Zimzum of Love, I think a lot of us who have egalitarian leanings, we're kind of waiting for that marriage book, because there's no shortage of complementarian marriage books.
Oh,
there, right?
like the woman, which are like women can't preach stuff.
Well, yeah, sure, or the reason your marriage sucks is because you're not performing your roles well, that kind of stuff, right? And so I think a lot of us were waiting for because we still need help with our marriages too, right? As egalitarians, And
I always say, if you're asking where the power is and where the buck stops, you've already lost the plot. Your marriage has already lost the point if you're asking who has the power.
Was that something that you were conscious of when you were writing the book, of there's a hole here that's not been addressed well, and can we fill that hole?
I wasn't aware that somebody had said that as well, and I was like, it just seems bizarre to me that in 2015 there would be people who are still no, she's supposed to, or even she's supposed to submit. When you got that from a verse in the Bible that begins with everybody submitting to everybody else.
Right.
Sure. It's not even true to its own text.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it doesn't play by its own rules.
Yeah, I was like, what? Or a book about marriage where she writes one chapter and it's on submission. Why are you talking about? What planet are you living on that there? So I think it was just us writing about the thing, and I have a strong wife who would, it's not even on our map that you would even, it's always for us from the get-go been an adventure we went on together. And I lean on her, and she leans on me. She's smarter than me. So yeah, this is how we see the world. I think maybe we did. Some people had said thank you for writing a book, and Kristen had said that this is a book about equals, because that's how we see it. When somebody had said, "Well, do you address, whatever these things we're talking about are?"
Yeah. You really occupy a unique space within Christianity and culture. I mean, there's N.T. Wright notoriety, where we go into certain circles and people are like, oh, absolutely, we know who he is and we know what he's about and that kind of thing. And then there's Joel Osteen notoriety, right? And we could put those under the Christian umbrella if we want.
That guy's awesome.
And it's kind of those are kind of the two kinds of weird, famous notoriety. and then you, Rob Bell, occupy like a really different space from either of those two.
Really?
You don't get that at all? You don't see that at all?
I have no perspective on whatever this.
So like, there's not tons of people who self-identify with Christians who like sit down with Oprah a lot, or get their own show.
Tequila shots with Oprah?
Or, yeah, exactly. And
yeah, I do.
I'm curious what you make of how people have latched onto your message on such a massive scale.
Huh. I just always found Jesus deeply compelling. When I was a kid, I loved the stories. And even in the past maybe year, I've been reflecting. Somewhere back there, I believe I found he was the center for me. And I didn't come in through a denominational system or through some intellectual argument. I came in through the stories they struck me as true. So the thing that built up around him seemed so at odds with the story. And all these things that he never mentions, getting like barnacles on the bottom of a ship or something. So that's what I'm interested in. And I don't have some committee somewhere I'm trying to please. I really don't care. And I don't care about Christianity. Some bulky argument for a series of statements, not interesting to me. Or like how Christianity is better than some other religion, or how do you feel? I could not care less. I find Jesus, I find resurrection, grace, peace, an unfolding revolution, the whole world right here within this one. The insistence in new creation. Absolutely, utterly compelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, there's a bunch of stuff, and even people who are like, well, us Christians and those people, I've met more people who would never call themselves Christians, who are so Jesus-like. And I've met more people who use the word Christian who seems so far to me from the center of the universe that the labels to me aren't interesting. And when I meet atheists who have rejected God and I ask them what God they rejected, they always describe a God that I want nothing to do with.
Right.
So I just don't find the whole game even remotely compelling. You would sit with Deepak Chopra and hear him talk about why he believes in God, and you would weep at how beautiful it is. A Harvard doctor who spends 2 hours a day in meditation telling you why he knows there's a God. So I don't buy the categories. I just fundamentally don't buy it. And I've just seen too much. The world's too alive. It's too big. It's too fantastic. And I'm as orthodox as they come. I'm an open. What if someone the other day said they're an empty tumor? You know what I mean? Like empty tomb. I'm like a birther.
Empty tumor.
Yeah,
okay, gotcha.
TOMB.
Right. I like it.
And so I don't have any sort of larger perspective on my work. I try to live I try to do my work and live with my wife and kids and friends and just keep going.
Yeah.
And I get to go upstairs in a few moments and do this thing, which brings me incredible joy. So honestly, I just try to keep going on my field.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Are you, and this is the last question, because Stratton came and gave us 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
About 5 minutes ago.
We could do this. We could pause, you could see the thing, then I do a meet and greet, and we could come back here, and you could talk about the thing if you want.
I'd love to do that.
Because I love
you got time for that, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to, because some of the questions that we're talking about, you might find interesting in light of the thing.
Okay, let's do it. Thanks for offering that.
Okay,
cool.
Do you want to do one more? Let's do one more question right now.
So I had a friend who, he went to seminary, I'd say moderate seminary. Anyway, they had hosted you. You came and you spoke, and he said there were some people there in the audience who kind of had an axe to grind. And he said that you came out, and within seconds, everyone was just like bowled over with your charisma. That's what he said. He said Rob came out and with a matter of seconds, his charisma had just kind of won everyone over in the audience. You have to know sometimes when you go to a place like that there are those people there. Is that something on your mind?
What was I've probably been to 2 seminaries in the past decade. So, I don't usually go to settings where it's sort of a hostile. I don't ever actually, simply because why? I don't want to convince you. My wife always says you can't take people where they don't want to go.
Yeah.
What was your question, by the way? I'm totally lost now.
Well, if that's something sometimes you're aware of, which I guess what you're saying is you don't go to the places where you would be aware of.
Well, I think sometimes you just have to steward your own energy, and if you just go around trying to convince people of something. There's enough people who are hungry. That's fun, so let's do that. Let's go, and there's enough of that work.
Sure, go with the goers.
I don't take myself that seriously.
Yeah.
So maybe in that setting, let's dance with this. See where it takes us.
Yeah.
Like, come on, people. Really? You think you could... everything... A lot of people just feel way too self-serious, plotting and heavy, and life is heavy. But true wisdom isn't wallowing in the heaviness. True wisdom is realizing it's a train wreck. We could blow this planet up in the next 10 years. We're in serious trouble. The only proper response to the tragedy and suffering of the world is, but we have this moment, and the lightness on the other side of heavy, and we can use our energies to try and help. So let's do that. Let's see what it might lead to, where it might go. There's a lightness on the other side of heaviness. That's where the light is. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Especially in a seminary setting.
Okay, so we're back. That was really cool. Yeah, where do you even start? So, I have a lot of questions about the mechanics of that.
Okay, fire away.
Do you have like an Evernote file somewhere that's got like every word written down that you said tonight? No.
Each spot was about an hour and 45 minutes. Structurally, 6 movements, and the movements within movements.
Yeah.
And so there's a Roman numeral old school outline that undergirds the whole thing.
Sure.
The pretty strong structure, and then the structure is what structure breeds spontaneity. So I can go anywhere I want because I know where I am.
And you can get back to the place where you need to be when
Not a problem.
There.
You know where we are.
Yeah.
Complexity, depth, unity, consciousness.
So tomorrow night's show is going to be a little bit different.
The structure, the meta structure will be that structure. So part of it is there are these emotional contours, and when it's that long, then you're getting to know its movement. So that movement, is that too long? Is that too short? Does that need to be expanded? Does that need? You're endlessly playing with spaces, learning what it is. So I'll be for the next month, and the joy of it will all be like learning. And certain things, something will happen in the room that other rooms don't, and things. So like in the first time I ever did it, I was like, how many of you have a past? Which is the dumbest line. How many of you have a past? How many, when you think about your past, your first thought is, killed it. Which is complete. I have no idea where it came from, and it was like pow. I was like, oh, that's it. That stays in. So there's all these things you're learning.
So you kind of let the audience tell you what stays.
Well, all sorts of stuff, and the no humor is ever planned.
Really?
So that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 time I've done it.
Yeah.
But none of it. I don't know what's funny.
Really?
For me, it's the content, and the ideas.
Yeah.
I remember thinking there's probably a Uranus joke.
Talking about planets.
I was like, oh, I got to do something about HIP one night. I got to do something about Uranus. And so there's little things where I'm like, and then I was like I knew the gas station story had like a sort of emotional resonance. And when I first started working on it, I knew I had it. I knew I was onto something when I drew this and realized that the expanding and expanding was the same. The universe in your heart was like, that was that's everything spiritual part too. And that was like a moment, like a serious, like tears. That's it. Because if I could help people see the nature of the universe and the nature of their heart, it's the same thing. And Jesus saying love is saying line yourself up. And I was like, that's like the idea of ideas. And then it was like, if they could just get this, and then that became the design Then it was like working with a designer on the whiteboard. If you could make, and then the T-shirt was like, if you could do that, it's the simplicity after complexity. If you start getting, it was like I could literally just communicate that, and I had the gas station story and that decision, and that felt like I know somewhere at the end I do that story, and that's where hopefully a number of things all of a sudden get connected. And so it's like a couple. Sometimes you have like the fact, and then you're like, okay, what is the feeling under that? Sometimes you have a story, and you're exploring like the contours of the story, feeling it out for what it is and what it means and all that, and then sort of from there the content builds around it. Yeah.
There's a lot of science in there, obviously. Like that's kind of what it's about. Did you like have to like run that by a scientist when you're done? You're like, okay, can you like fact check me here? Like, am I saying anything like gravely wrong?
Yeah, stuff that like and like a guy who knows a lot watched a really, really early version.
Yeah.
And when I wanted him to tell me, I don't know what I want. Oh, he said that was like the best cosmology. So you're really trying to fuse theology, philosophy. You're trying to fuse a bunch of things into something that the 14-year-old girl who I just hugged can track with. So you're actually, it's not really, you're trying to blend a whole bunch of things in a blender. So people are like, oh, that was a science lecture. Well, there were elements of it, but I'm trying to do something at a higher altitude than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then any sort of fact, you generally just want to make sure you found that in a number of places. So an example would be a number of people say that the atoms are 99.9% empty space. Mm-hmm. That the universe could fit in a sugar cube if you took the empty space out of all the atoms. Problem is, yes, how we think of empty space, atoms are empty space, but technically they're fields. So real scientists are like, it's not really empty space, but that's what we call it. Yeah. So I dumped that just so that the one scientist that kills the whole thing.
Yeah. There's a suspension of disbelief is blown.
Even though you could argue it poetically, it's not. Yes, we have all those little decisions to make.
Yeah.
And
it's so fascinating.
And then how do you arrange it and what goes where? And then it's just endless. Move it here, move it there. I think that I do in the self-transcending thing. I think it has these 4 points below it. Oh, and then the what do we make up? So number one, I go number one complexity. Everybody knows like, oh, it's going to be number 2 and number 3. So now we're in like our one mode. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the art of it. And I love talking about this, and I love you asked about it. And that craft to me is the joy.
Oh, it's so fascinating. Like I spent a lot of time in a Toastmasters group, which is like so fun.
Oh, it's like speaking, public speaking.
Right. It's just a group of people who get together and practice public speaking.
Public speaking, have you heard of it?
Ever done that? But it kind of harkened back to that because obviously it's something you had to rehearse, but it was really, it was really good, and it was also instead of like 6 to 8 minutes, it was like an hour and 45 minutes. I don't know. And then also recently I heard someone who does like spoken word, and he did like a thing that was like also like an hour and a half long spoken word, which, he did have to get every word right every time, which was interesting. Mm-hmm. But there are similarities in both of those things. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we were talking about afterwards that I was saying was I think that a lot of it is can be like a Rorschach test. People like what people walk away getting from it might say more about them than
absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. People hear. Oh yeah. People hear what they want to hear for sure.
And I was saying, like, on one level, it's something that, like, people from a very wide spectrum can get and appreciate. Really, like, unless you're, like, a younger creationist. You're not real, there's nothing real, like, offensive about anything you said or divisive or anything like that, right? And then there's also, why is that funny? Just because.
A guy said that last night.
Yeah, oh, really?
Carlton Pearson, the bishop.
Okay.
In Tulsa.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like...
It's like a pretty unifying message.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And then... But at the same time, like, it's also an apologetic for God, right? Because you're kind of saying, maybe that's a Rorschach test. Maybe I'm...
Yes! Yes!
Okay, so you're like pumping your fist like I'm right, okay? Because it's like there's all this complexity in the world, and I love, one of the favorite lines is that it progresses in the least likely way. You said it better, of course.
Less probable direction.
Less probable direction. I love it. Like you use the example, you leave ingredients in your kitchen, the next morning you wake up and there's a cake, right? Like, it makes no sense. but that's how the universe is like progressed, right? And so,
have you heard of the noosphere?
no,
Noosphere.
no,
Theorists are now identifying. If you looked at the Earth, whatever, 100,000 years ago, it was just an Earth. But now, people are thinking. If you look at it 100,000 years ago, you look at it today, people have thoughts, and they're thinking about people on the other side of the planet. And you have satellites, and you have cell phones. So now the Earth is ringed by a layer of thought and consciousness. So the Earth itself has a new sphere that is now surrounding it, which is human consciousness thinking. And so the complexity has grown because that didn't exist 100,000 years ago if you looked at the Earth. But now when you look at the Earth, you're looking at something that is encapsulated consciousness.
that's pretty mind blowing. And so
It's literally a new layer
that's so fascinating. And so like there's an inference for the talk you just gave that is like, if there's this progress, then there must be a progressor, or if there's an organization, there must be an organizer behind it, right?
Right. So one of the things to me was, when it dawned on me, what a fascinating way, do you believe in God, or why do you believe in God, is to do that, come in the side door. Tonight I want to give you an argument for the existence of God. I'm already bored.
Right. Yeah.
But let's just make some observations about this place. And I don't ever say, you want to call it that, you want to call it that, you call it that. But don't tell me and really tell me the open-minded position. It was all just, I just took it to the edge and then just pointed to a bunch of stuff. So if you make that leap, you made it.
Yeah.
I didn't do any ultimatum. I didn't throw any ultimatums. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the interesting thing. Is I'm going to take up to the thing, we're going to look over the edge, and then I'm going to respect your ability.
You come to. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was actually one of the things that I was like, oh, Lord, I'm actually doing something here. Interesting. That happened early in the prep. Like, oh, there's a subtext here. It's like when sometimes there's what you're saying, and then sometimes also you're placing a whole series of things all through it.
Yeah.
That you're realizing there are certain people who are going, oh, and they're actually connecting all of those things.
Yeah.
So you're placing a thing within a thing.
Yeah.
Which is why some sermons to you are boring, because there's only one thing going on.
Well, and if you from the get-go say, inadvertently say, I have an agenda and here it is, that's when we also like check out, right?
Right.
But to coming through the side door, like you said.
I'm a guide, and I'm like, let me show you some stuff. And it lights me up. Okay.
Yeah, and to also say, like, we can't, like, this stuff isn't really debatable. Like, I'm just saying, like, this is what happened, right? Like, you really are saying, like, just check this stuff out. This, like, objective stuff that happened,
Right. There's an element of, like, a lot of really, this kind of general agreement that we're here.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to have to offer some explanation. Here's one of them. This kind of seems to be what most people are agreeing on. Huh.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun to talk about?
Oh, it's so fun.
And this is what I dreamed of years ago when I started preaching.
I had the sense that my job was to see how far it could be taken.
You feel like the seed of, like, what we saw tonight was planted, like, that long ago?
I just decided my job was to give myself to this art form, to try to resurrect it culturally as an art form and then see how far it could be taken. And the first tour was really like, well, if you took it completely out of a church and just did clubs, what would you learn about the art form? Mm-hmm. And then how far can you take people? What can you create? What's possible? Then this is, for me, this is part of my life work is simply this art form and what can be done with it and where can it go and what's possible. This is 2015 and people sat for an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
What was your call tonight? Preaching? Or
Well,
something else?
that's the thing that's interesting to me is what territory are we in? You tell me, I don't know. Sure, it's fun.
Well, that's what Joe was saying. Like, it's part sermon, like, that's in there. Part, almost inspirational. Yeah.
Preacher.
And
Science
professor.
Science teacher.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about art forms is generally like if you learn to paint, then you have to go to art school and you have to learn how the masters did it. You learn pastels, you learn acrylics, you learn watercolor, you learn oil, you learn how to draw a hand, you learn how to draw a sunset, you learn Renoir, you learn Monet. You study all the masters and you take all the bits and pieces and you something new hopefully comes through you. And then in music, those first two albums, their first album sounded like Blink-182. Their second album sounded like Radiohead. By the third album, you were like, oh, that's actually fresh. So Muse sounds a lot like Black Sabbath on the early albums. And then gradually this new thing, they begin to integrate all of these influences and out of it create a stew that hasn't been created before. Yeah. So on that, to me, the really interesting thing is when you are taking the best from a wide range and bringing it, and something new begins to emerge that kind of feels new. That's getting really exciting.
So, how would you answer the question, Raphael is to Christianity as blank is to blank? If the Muse is the Black Sabbath,
couldn't care less.
Or so you just, but you have to care if Muse listen to Black Sabbath. What is that you're standing in? It creates something new.
I just don't. I'm just bored of people. I have no perspective outside of myself. All I know is just doing the work. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when I hear somebody waxing about their role in the larger thing, I'm always like, oh, please. Somebody else's job. You know what I mean?
For example, tonight,
if LeBron James says he thinks he's the best basketball player, instantly we're all like, dude, don't let me say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, or some person says, I'm breaking new ground. I'm taking hip-hop where it's never taken before. I'm instantly like
the Kanye West.
Let other people say that. And the power of Kanye is, part of the problem for Kanye is if he was like one click quieter.
So much greater.
Yes. And I'm not in any way, obviously, comparing myself to LeBron or Kanye, but I'm just observing people. The moment someone tries to like place themselves in some larger picture, I'm always like, ugh.
But I think what I experienced tonight was I was like, oh, that's Pete Holmes on stage. What I mean is like you're all these pieces coming together. 2 years ago when I heard you in California, I didn't hear Pete in a way that I heard him tonight. And your friendship is, you know how friendships do that, right?
Absolutely.
Your friendship, so like, there's parts of the shape.
Oh, yeah.
When I listen to the podcast, I'm like, I want to ask questions like that.
Yeah.
And so,
definitely.
I experienced Pete tonight, so that's the question I think I asked.
Oh, absolutely. My friendship with Pete. Yeah. And when we went on tour together, he started doing an impression of me because he started moving around the stage more, and we would burst out laughing because he'd be like, "Oh my word, we were like picking stuff up, from each other, like, ooh, that's a good." And how there are these moments when he explodes a piece. You know what I mean? Like I find certain pieces need like an explosion. They need to pow because that's what they deserve. And the other parts, I'm glad you said that. That's funny. And we actually discussed the Uranus joke.
You guys riffed on that, huh?
He saw it in L.A. He saw it, and he was like, oh, I have one note. And then we discussed that.
Yeah,
nice.
Does he, like, critique your comedic parts? Didn't try to, like, this is how you be funny. Right. This is how you tell a joke.
No, not really.
You've got a pretty good comedic timing, like, since,
What's interesting when we started doing our tour is there was a part in the end where he would say some of his spiritual observations. Like, and this might help you, and this might. And to watch him own it. So he was like, I'm a comedian. And I was like, you know what, that thing at the end? These aren't. Step all the way into this. Tell them that content like you tell them your other content. So he had like these 3 or 4 practices that help him. He's like, these might help you, it might not help you. But one of the things that helps me is, I don't know, maybe not for you, but maybe this one's helpful. And he changed demeanor because he was like, I'm into your territory. I was like, own that territory. Own it and just say, here are 4 things that really help. And you could see him own this preaching. By the end in Boston, he was preaching, doing sections of straight up. You have to understand. And I was taking some of my bits and actually letting them, let that story really pop. Like, let it move around the room. Let it, you know what I mean? I found myself bitting up. Bitting? B-I-T-T?
Bitting?
Realizing, wait, this thing is a bit, so let it have a beginning, a middle, and end. Let it do its thing in the room and give it the respect it deserves and sell that point, like, with all the passion it needs, because that's the, you know what I mean? Like, we definitely found each other. And also what was interesting, touring with him, And there were probably we had a structured outline. We're both on the mics, so he does a bit, I do a bit, and it goes back and forth. So probably 15 times in a row, I'm following a world-class comedian. So he's just blown the roof off, and he looks at me, and you know that thing when you're like, you don't want to fall. So it did this. It was like boot camp. It was so good. You have to be so grounded. You can't at all try to be him. Totally be yourself. But whatever you're going to do, whoever you're going to be, own it, because you're competing with a world-class comedian who's 6'5". It just is a massive explosion in the room. You know what I mean? And it was like so fantastic to get. You're in Portland, and it's electric, and he does a thing, and people are bent over crying, and he looks at you, and you know half the room have never heard you. And these are his fans. If you in any way aren't like, this is who I am, this is why I'm here, this is what I'm doing, you're toast.
Is height a requirement for a big friend to
Yeah, apparently.
Pete Rollins is not tall.
That's true.
Yeah,
Small guy.
So you and Pete's friendship is one of my favorite things on the internet world right now. And just listening to y'all, your last podcast with him, when he said you saved me, that was really cool.
That was unbelievable. We both started crying. That's why I had to end it. We were both like, wow.
Now that's 2 or 3 years of y'all's friendship.
At my dining room table.
So that's the question I asked. You said you stand in the line of Monet and you learn these great masters. And so you stand in the room with Pete Holmes. You have to understand, this is my role. This is what I'm doing. Pete Holmes is a comedian. I am what the heck is Rob Bell in that space? I'm not asking that, and I'm trying to force a question.
My wife would say spiritual teacher.
What does that mean in the world we live in? I wonder. Because some people would say, what does spiritual even mean? Like, it's a meaningless term, right? So I'm just curious.
I'll take an awareness that is a reality beyond what we can access with our five senses. And it's actually the place from which you live. You're up, down, happy, sad, motivated, unmotivated, despair, joy. Actually, all resides in a realm called spirit. Spirits are up, spirits are down, spirits are weird. Spirit was weird in the room. Man, the team spirit's great. Spirit in the office is great. Spirit. But actually, spirit is that which is unseen, cannot be accessed with five senses, but is more real than what we can access with five senses. I think what's happened in our modern world is people, that which can be accessed with five senses has so dominated the discussion for 300 years that it's built us hospitals, airports, and put 10,000 songs in our pockets. And it's so created the modern world that a number of people don't even have muscles for seeing and discerning. And yet what you have now is CEOs going, when spirits are up, we make more money. So there is this thing that is the engine of the whole thing, and I don't have any way of understanding what to call it other than religious terms, which feel like a step back. So I think what you're seeing now, TED is in a huge problem, because you only talk about stuff that you've discovered through research. So I went to TED a couple of years ago, and what's interesting is speaker after speaker after speaker tells us an amazing story about human transcendence and spirit and oneness, and yet they get to an edge and then they can't. And I literally wanted to stand up a couple times and just say, there's a whole tradition, there's vast thousands of pages that have been written about the unseen that's real. You're not, because they're trying to invent this to help this. It's all very buoyant and lovely, but they literally can't just say, there was a presence that none of us could name that was inspired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like the orange meme in Spiral Dynamics. They can't get through.
Well, we got the 5 minutes. We got the 5 minutes.
Okay,
about 5
let's do
minutes.
one more. This is so much.
Well, this is not even a question, but it brought me back. So thanks
I'm so glad to meet you. I'm so glad to talk about these things. I love talking about these things. I'm so glad you guys came tonight. These are wonderful.
You've been so free with your time, and I got the interview request pretty late to you, and I didn't expect to hear back. So thank you for everything.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Seminary Dropout. Remember, you can find all the show notes for this show and all shows at ShaneBlackshear.com. I want to leave you with one last announcement, and that is that I have developed and have released and launched an e-course on podcasting of all things. There are probably a lot of you out here who have thought, hey, I'd like to start my own podcast. Well, I have developed an e-course for you. It's got everything that you need to know. You need no prior knowledge about podcasting technology to sign up for this course. That's what it's for. I'll teach you everything. So please go check it out. And you can get there by going to podcastingforeveryone.org. That's podcastingforeveryone.org. I'll have notes or a link in the show notes for it. Please go check it out, and you can get 30% off. Wait, 30? 25. You can get 25% off. No, that's not true. This week, you can get 30% off of the course by using the code Seminary Dropout, all one word. So please go there, use the code Seminary Dropout, all one word, and get 30% off this week. All right. Thanks to those that left ratings and reviews on iTunes this week. Remember, that keeps the show front and center. Also, remember, you can find me on Twitter at @beardonabike. That's @beardonabike. Also, I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Shane Blackshear123. And remember that Seminary Dropout is listener supported. You can visit supportseminarydropout.com and press Become a Patron. Remember, this music you're listening to right now is by D.L. Rossi. You can find him online on iTunes and at dlrossi.com. All right, thanks again for joining me for another episode of Seminary Dropout. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Love you. Take care.